Legend, hard fact, statistics and myths. By 1930, professional baseball had become the national pastime, and it needed a national shrine. So by 1939, Major League Baseball formed an institution that would both honor and preserve the great game, and they called it the Hall of Fame. And what better place to put it than right here in Cooperstown. Our first immortals were enshrined that year. Honus Wagner, Christy Mathewson, Walter Johnson, Cobb, George Herman Ruth. They were inducted right here, right in this spot, right in front of 15,000 people on that centennial year of baseball, right in front of the door that leads into the Hall of Fame. The Hall opens its doors in the year of baseball's great centennial and inducts its first 5 immortals, elected in 1936, along with others elected later, such as Cy Young, Tris Speaker, Grover Cleveland Alexander. But it's those first 5 who will provide the measuring stick for all the great players to come. With eyes that betray an unholy fierceness, the Georgia Peach, Cobb. He joins the Detroit Tigers in 1905 and bats .240. For the next 23 years, he will never bat below 300. His unorthodox grip will allow him to sting the ball in any direction he pleases and accumulate the highest career average of all time. But if Cobb was intimidating at the plate, he was even more so on the base paths. Casey Stengel claimed he ruled the field by awe, daring to use his frightening speed at any moment, always clearing fielders away with a screeching flash of well-sharpened spikes. Why, Cobb was not particularly liked by others who couldn't even comprehend his style of baseball. But his inner combustion drove him far enough to earn the claim of many eyewitnesses that he was indeed the greatest player the game has ever known. His greatest rival, Honus Wagner, the Flying Dutchman. As a child, he'd walk 14 miles barefoot just to see the Pittsburgh Pirates play. As a pirate, his shovel-sized miner's hands strangled the bat far above the handle. Those hands helped him become the game's best shortstop, as did the bowed legs which lowered his great frame close to the ground, where he'd sweep up baseballs and throw in one motion. Wagner won 8 batting titles in 12 years and 5 stolen base titles. His offensive skills dominated the National League. As an infielder, he was unrivaled. And he, too, had a fair share of contemporaries, such as John McGraw, who claimed the friendly, hard-working Dutchman had no equal on the diamond. On the mound, Big Six, Christy Mathewson, one of the 2 favored candidates for the world's greatest pitcher. Intelligent, good-looking, his clear stare suggested at times an unspoken contempt for common mortals. But though he was uncommon, excelling at Bucknell University on the gridiron and in the classroom, Mathewson was no snob. He merely mastered himself as he did his powerful pitches, never panicking, rarely walking a batter, always brilliant in the clutch. His special out pitch was the fadeaway, now called the screwball, which had never been seen by major league hitters before. And in 1905, he crowned the New York Giants world champs with 3 shutout victories, a feat never equaled. Allowing little more than 2 earned runs per game over 17 years, he won 20 or more 12 straight times, 30 or more 3 times. Big Six, the mound's finest artist, but its most awesome hard baller, Walter Johnson, the Big Train. In his first 3 seasons with the underprivileged Washington Senators, he had a losing record. But in 1910, he won 25 and struck out 313 with a paralyzing fastball. With hands large enough to swallow the ball and arms long enough to whip it to the plate, the modest Kansas farm boy simply overmatched hitters for the next 15 years. Bob Feller, Sandy Koufax, Nolan Ryan, none threw harder than the Big Train. Surely none did for so long. He started 802 games, completed 604, won 416, more than anyone except Cy Young. He also struck out more than anyone and hurled far more shutouts, all for a truly terrible team that waited till he was 36 to reward him with a pennant. Even then, he was delivering his fastball with that fluid, submarine-type motion well enough to win 23 games. But Walter Johnson was a man without complaint, without enemy. His only worry was that his fearsome speedball might someday kill a man. It killed no one, but it thrilled millions. One of his mound rivals was a southpaw, George Herman Ruth. That was when the Babe was a trim youngster, setting a World Series record with the Boston Red Sox for consecutive scoreless innings. But the Sox also discovered the kid from Baltimore could hit like no one else. So did the New York Yankees, who purchased him through the biggest heist in sports history. Ruth pitched very occasionally for New York, turning full-time to right field. Great as his arm was, it could not match his bat. Before, in the era of the dead ball, baseball had been a game of hit and run. Now, the Babe would hit, then trot. That familiar trot around the bases built Yankee Stadium, the most spectacular sports arena since the Roman Coliseum. Earlier, the Yankees had played in a National League park. They had no hint of baseball's empire, and no king of the sporting world. Hands down at the handle, swinging freely with all his great strength. Home run followed home run. He'd broken the record in 1919 by swatting 29. 2 years later, he upped the ante to 59. Baseball simply wasn't the same again. The Babe might show indifference to managers, owners, even presidents, but never children, whom he loved and played with as though he was one of them. Like his carefree trot around the bases, Ruth's name circled the globe, a legend unmistakably American and unique. As Emerson once said, he who in the midst of a crowd maintains his individuality. Such was the one and only Babe Ruth.